Hi, friends. We at GLC would like to take a quick moment to thank you for watching our programs on this platform, and we'd like to ask you for a little favor. Would you please go beneath this video and click the subscribe button? Did you know that by simply subscribing to the GLC YouTube channel, you can help us financially support the programs on this platform? You'll need to be signed into YouTube beforehand. But if not, simply click the subscribe button and YouTube will automatically walk you through the steps to sign in or to create an account. By taking these simple steps, you will not only ensure that you continue to receive our unique programming and gain instant access to the hundreds of videos we post, but more importantly, you'll also be telling YouTube that GLC's content is worth watching and promoting. Likewise, if you enjoyed a specific program, please click the thumbs up button below, which also helps inform YouTube that this is a program worth recommending. Finally, once you have logged in and subscribed, please click the notification bell below in order to receive announcements when we post new content. As usual, feel free to post your questions and comments in the comments section below. We always love hearing from our friends and viewers. Again, thank you for watching and supporting God's Learning Channel. We couldn't spread the message of the gospel without you. Be blessed, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of The Light of the Southwest. Of course, I'm your host, Eric Espetia, and today I have the very great pleasure of introducing a guest who is beloved here on GLC. We have the leader of Beit HaDerek and the founder of the Ladder of Jacob. Please welcome Ben Burton.
Hey, thank you, Eric. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Appreciate it. Blessings to GLC and blessings to everybody who's watching. This is a very exciting thing because we've got some big announcements and things we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. So for you who are just out there joining, I know that you tune in to GLC, your loyal listeners. I just thank you so much for just continuing to tune in. If you're out there and you're like, hey, man, I wish there was just something new. I was just looking for a new project, something to sink my teeth into. Well, you tuned into the right show because you're about to hear all about it. Mr. Ben, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to this project that you've put together and then kind of what's inspired you to do it? I mean, what was the inspiration behind it? And then tell us a little bit about it. And I'm excited about it because I'm actually a part of this project.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And it's amazing you're a part of it too, because I think one thing is when we interact with each other or just interact with any brother, it's like you get excited and it throws fire on your spirit that makes you just want to keep pushing further, which is one part is why why it's important for us to be part of a community. So our community at Beit HaDerek, if you live in Midland, Odessa, and West Texas area, come see us at Beit HaDerek. But it's amazing to have a fellowship and you're learning from each other. And so one thing we're going to do, and we're very excited about, is a verse by verse, chapter by chapter study of the New Testament through a Jewish lens from Matthew 1:1 all the way to Revelation 22:21.
Yeah.
And so this is epic. I mean, super exciting. And just to give a little preview about this, we last year, we did a verse-by-verse study of the book of Revelation, and it was super informal. And this is also going to be kind of informal, although it's going to be a little bit more professionally done. But it's going to be very exciting because we're just going to go through verse by verse, and we have studios set up and and it's going to be on GLC, and that's going to be an amazing thing. So if you're watching on GLC, also on YouTube, it's going to be available in multiple formats and places. You can stop and hit rewind. You can hit pause, which I think is very important. But we're going to go verse by verse, chapter by chapter of the New Testament through a Jewish lens. And we're going to explain today our methodology of how we're going to do this and how we can see through the lens of an ancient Jewish rabbi reading the New Testament.
Yeah, that's amazing. So the inspiration for the show came really from the Revelation study. The tools that you applied to Revelations would be the same tools you're going to apply through the entire New Testament. And that was the inspiration behind it. I was actually part of that study. I didn't get to make all of them. I got to make probably 80% of those. But But those studies are still out there, and they came with notes. And
Yes.
so you were able to follow along with the notes. And as you were going verse by verse,
Right.
we were beginning to pull out what would the sages say about this verse. Why don't you tell us about the methodology behind it?
So excellent. So you're right, and I had totally forgotten about the notes. So in our study of Revelation, we produced about 370 pages of notes, released all for free. Anybody can download them, hit print, and connect to it. We want to do the same thing with this study. So as you're going through Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, ahead of time, the notes are going to be released so that you will be able to see verse by verse a commentary of the sages on Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, on Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, going all the way to the book of Revelation. Now, I was once asked by a Messianic rabbi, how can we really do this? How is it possible for us to get into the shoes of a first century rabbi or a first century sage and see his perspective of the New Testament? Is this even possible? Is this pure conjecture? And we're going to explain the methodology of how this is done. And it's really kind of like reverse engineering.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people know about this, but I don't know if it's available to the wider world. So we're going to make this available because consistently on social media and other places, I see so many misinterpretations of the New Testament, missed applications of certain verses, a really terrible portrayal of Yeshua in many ways from all kinds of sectors and sources. And we want to show the real Jewish Jesus from his culture, from his perspective, and we're going to explain that. So first of all, the New Testament wasn't written in a vacuum. It's a product of Second Temple Judaism. So in Second Temple Judaism, in this area, there was a ton of literature that sprung around this area and subsequent literature as well. So we're going to kind of go through that, but I want to explain it very clearly just so how we can make this as clear as possible. So everything Yeshua does in the Gospels, every single thing he does has a deep resonance and connection to the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So there are 54 Torah portions, and each Torah portion has like 3 to 4 themes in it, certain concepts, whether it's the trial of the Sota, the woman who was accused of adultery, or the Nazirite vow, or the creation of the world, or Noah, Parashat Noah. And so there are different Torah portions throughout the year. Well, Yeshua, everything he does in the Gospels has a connection to one of these Torah portions. And so it's very amazing when you see Yeshua do something that echoes that particular Torah source. So when that happens, we have a unique methodology to reverse engineer the rabbinic commentary. And here's how it goes.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered, what would Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, or Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, the most genius rabbis of the world, what would they do if they read the New Testament? How would they read it? If they were looking into the New Testament, what would they think and what would their commentary be? And this was like a dream of mine for years and years, just wondering, what would Rashi say? What would Ramban say? What would Rambam say? What would all these great sages of Israel who are on genius level? If anybody's ever read the commentaries of the Jewish people, which we can talk about in just a minute, but if you've ever read these commentaries, their understanding of the Torah is like astrophysics level, where maybe most people are doing basic addition and subtraction, maybe a little bit of division, maybe some scholars are doing exponents.
Yeah.
The Jewish people are doing theoretical physics and differential, equations and all kinds of things. They're just on a higher level. And it's all math, but it's just the scale of the math. So I was wondering, what if you put one of these minds to the New Testament? And I discovered something shocking. They did, but in an indirect way. And this is the example, is Yeshua does something that has a specific connection to something in the Torah.
Right, because it'll even show it in our New King James Bible.
Yeah,
with like a
here's
quotation.
a little reference. Yeah.
Like a quotation. Where's the quotations from? He's directly quoting the Torah or the Tanakh somehow.
Correct. And there is something even deeper behind all of this too. For instance, if we talk about the woman caught in adultery in John chapter 8, in this little section called the pericope adulterae, in this section in John chapter 8, it has a deep resonance with the Sota ceremony from the book of Numbers. And this has an incredible connection. Okay, so this is huge. So just to explain this, so what we do, and here's how we do it, we find the Torah source for the verse and the passage in the New Testament. For every section in the New Testament, there is a source in the Torah. There is a secret of interpretation by the Jewish rabbis that say everything is found in the Torah. And the way they say it in Hebrew is hafokbo dekulobo, which means turn it over and turn it over again because everything is contained in it. And so the New Testament, every single verse is concealed in the Tanakh. There's a very famous Christian saying that says the New Testament is concealed in the Old Testament is revealed in the New Testament. That's not wrong. That's true. The Tanakh, which most people call the Old Testament, it's better to say Older Testament because it's not old as if it's done away with. It's just older. But Tanakh stands for Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, which means the Torah, the law, the instruction, the prophets, and the writings. So when we look into these verses in the New Testament, we have to understand that there is a shoresh, a Torah root in every single verse, in every single section. So when you understand that, then you can find the source of the New Testament verse. So what we then do is grab the rabbinic commentary, the commentary of Rashi, the commentary of Rambam, and all the great rabbis on the source, and then forward apply it upon the New Testament. And what we have when we do this is called hamafteach, is the key to unlocking the New Testament from a Jewish perspective like has never been seen before.
Yeah.
And so there are huge advances in understanding the New Testament on like exponential levels now, that we are understanding the deep, how would you call it, the deep resonance of what Yeshua is doing. And we're putting ourselves in the shoes of those who were hearing him speak when they walked away speechless, saying, nobody speaks like this man.
Yeah.
So when we see that Yeshua holds up the coin and he says, whose image and inscription is this? And everybody say, Kaiser, the Caesars. And he says, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, unto God what is God's. 95% of people say that means that Jesus says, pay your taxes, okay? I'm not against paying taxes, but that's not what that means, okay? That's not what that means. What he is saying is something deep that was well known in this particular time that comes from Parshat Ketisa, which is in the book of Exodus. And there is a concept called the holy half shekel. Mm-hmm. And the holy half shekel is this particular coin that represents a person. And the Midrash says that Moses did not understand what he was referring to, what God was referring to when he was talking about this holy half shekel. And immediately God pulls the coin of fire out from under his throne and shows it to Moses and says, something that looks like this. And this coin of fire represents something huge. The rabbis say in Pirkei Avot, in the chapter of the fathers in the Mishnah, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, it says, an earthly king mints a coin in his image, and all the coins look the same. Where the heavenly king of kings mints a coin in his image, and we all look different. And so this concept of the coin being the image of God, demut Elohim, tselem Elohim, the image of God, represented a person. This is also found in a first century Jewish guy named Philo of Alexandria. He references this teaching and he says that the coin of God, as it were, represents us, and the image, the template, represents the logos, represents the word of God. So the word of God is actually the image, and we're the image of the image. And he makes this concept. So this was well known in currency in the Second Temple era. When Yeshua holds the coin up, he says, whose image is this? And they say, this is Caesar's image. Well, first of all, Caesar's denarius coin does not belong in the land of Israel. This is a pagan coin that has nothing to do with the holiness of Israel. And therefore he says, give unto God what is God's. What is God's image? That is yourself. That is, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, and all of your strength. And let Caesar have his filthy, idolatrous image. And this is a mind-blowing concept. Yeah. Everybody stood back and was shocked, because had Yeshua said, yes, pay taxes to Caesar, he would have denied the Torah and the authority of the Jewish people to be over the land of Israel. If he says don't pay the taxes, they would have immediately run, the Herodians were there with them, they would immediately run to the Roman authorities, and they would have had Yeshua taken out. And so it was a rock and a hard place, and he answers it with Torah, but he answers it in the exact emulation of his father, who showed Moses like this coin of fire.
Right.
He holds up the coin too and says, whose image is this?
Right.
So when we understand this on this level, we see that Yeshua's actions have this deep source and Torah connection that the rabbis, when they make these commentaries, start unlocking, and we start seeing the New Testament through eyes we have never seen before. And I do have one warning about this study. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you unlock this, you will never see the New Testament the same again. And I want to tell you something, it makes Yeshua bigger.
Yeah.
It's not that it makes him bigger, it makes our understanding of him richer. It makes our understanding of him bigger. And this is where it's so amazing to see the Jewish Messiah and the Savior of the world, Yeshua of Nazareth, come alive on the pages of the New Testament by putting the New Testament back in the soil,
right,
from which it grew, which is Second Temple Judaism.
Yeah, I think when you see the New Testament through, let's say, Hebrew, and I think that's that statement is even controversial itself. I mean, most people would say, the New Testament is definitely only preserved in the Greek. So how can you presume to put any of these thoughts in the Hebrew thought?
Yeah.
But when you begin to ask yourself some pretty basic questions, like, are the disciples are Jewish, and they wrote most likely and spoke in Hebrew or Aramaic. And so I'm excited to pull out some of the things like Hebrew idioms out of it where it doesn't really work in the Greek and it works perfectly in the Hebrew. And we'll be able to explore those as we go verse by verse through this. Can you answer this question? Why do you think now is the perfect time for this study? And the reason why I bring that up is because I feel like there's a lot of literature being released. We're in libraries in German and are now being able to finally be put into English. And we have just a ton of resources. And you actually brought a bunch of them with you. We're surrounded by books in the studio, if you can see.
Let's take a look at this.
Sure.
Oh, this is amazing. You were just referencing something. First of all, there's a lot of questions in there and a lot of amazing things. Let's work through those. But you just mentioned that there is literature being produced right now and just coming out that is really unlocking the New Testament on levels that haven't really been revealed before. And one of those things is the Strachan-Billerbeck commentary on the New Testament from the Talmud and Midrash, which I'm holding right here. And I'm sure the GLC bookstore can get this for you if you're interested. This is one right now of 3 published volumes. They're going to have a 4th volume. This is 4,000 pages of commentary on the New Testament alone from Jewish sources.
Yeah.
So what I'm holding right now is a 1,200-page commentary. You can see how big this thing is. It I don't know, it weighs like 400 pounds. But it's this is 1,200 pages on Matthew alone.
Yeah.
From the Talmud and the Midrash, from Jewish sources, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. I have waited for this for decades, okay?
Right.
And now it's available. So it was only previously available in German. It was written by 2 guys, Strachan-Billerbeck, in the early 1900s. And it just became available in English. So there's 3 volumes available, and the 4th one's in production. But this is a verse-by-verse study of the New Testament from Jewish sources. And we're going to be utilizing this resource greatly. But you're asking, why now?
Yep.
Why now is this coming out? I mean, what is the significance of this time frame? And I want to tell you my personal belief and my personal opinion is that we are about to enter the last days, in my view. Okay. Now I make no calculations. I don't, make predictions or anything like that. I don't know the day or the hour. I don't think no one knows. Anybody who says they know, they don't. Okay. With that said, we know the season is here. All the geopolitical chess pieces are set up exactly as Ezekiel chapter 38, 39, and other places mention. And we see what's called Ikfata de Mashiach, which is the footsteps of the Messiah. As Yeshua's approach gets closer, the knowledge of God is beginning to awaken in the world, while also darkness is rising in the world.
Yeah.
And so darkness can't rise without light rising, and light and darkness are coming to oppose each other. So as we have this knowledge of an explosion of not only science, but you also have an understanding of Scripture that is being unveiled to the world. Right now, there is a website called Sefaria, SEFARIA .org, that anybody can go to, and they have translated thousands and thousands of Jewish books into English, and it's free, and it's verse by verse. You can click on the verse and pull up like 50 commentaries of the rabbis. And so the methodology that we're talking about is going to be available at everyone's fingertips, and it's found in Daniel chapter 12. In Daniel chapter 12, it says, knowledge will increase.
Yeah.
And this is something, knowledge, good knowledge, and also evil knowledge is increasing. Why? The knowledge of good and evil. All knowledge can be bifurcated into either good or evil. So when we see that, we're going through this understanding through an incredible level. So I want to bring up another commentary here of, here's a commentary. We're going to use this a little bit. We're going to use Strack and Billerbeck a lot, but this is from Amy Jill Levine. She is a Jewish scholar. Like she's an incredible Jewish scholar. It's called the Jewish Annotated New Testament. As with any commentary, I don't agree with like every single thing, and there's errors that are made in certain places, but you don't really look at it like that. You have to look at it, do they have a unique insight to what is going on in the text? Right. So we're also going to be using a lot of a text called Chronicles of Messiah, which to me is the best commentary on the New Testament, at least the Gospels rather, probably available. So we're going to be relying on this a lot. And this is a great Jewish commentary on the New Testament. There's also Stern's commentary on the New Testament, which you can find available in the GLC bookstore. Yeah. And we have a ton of more things that we're going to be referencing in our study as we go.
It was hilarious. So as we prepared for this show, and Ben approached me and said, "Hey, how would you feel about being a co-host with me on this project?" And at first, I thought, what do I have to bring to the table? I was intimidated a little bit, but I know that it had to be a hard yes for me. I want to do this. On one level, I knew it was going to challenge me to level up on my own understanding, and the study would help me to learn as we go. So as I learn, you learn, and I'm going to ask the questions that you all want to ask as we go through this study. But Amazon packages started arriving at my house, and as I was getting boxes delivered, they were pretty heavy boxes. And as I'm opening these boxes, Mr. Ben says, "Hey, I sent you some books. Make sure that you're prepared for the study." And so I'm starting to get my own library built up because of preparation for this. But to encourage everyone, as you're going through, we're going to provide notes. It's going to be chapter by chapter, line by line. And this is actually going to be in a live format as well. So there's the ability to kind of jump in, make some comments, and ask some questions, super chat and stuff like those. So make sure that you are ready to tune in and join in. And again, most of this you can play at your own time and your own time frame. It's going to be through GLC, and it's going to go over our broadcast network. It's going to go through Ladder of Jacob. Is it going to go through Beit?
It's going to go through Beta Derek's website. It's going to go through YouTube, be available on Facebook Live.
Yeah, there's so much going on, and I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm a little intimidated only because I feel like maybe I don't have the scholastic acumen and the background that Mr. Ben does, but that's the beauty of the living word. As we begin to dive into it, we begin to read it. It's the Holy Spirit that begins to work on our own hearts, and every one of us is going to walk away with something different. Just to give like a quick highlight. So, Matthew chapter 1, it begins with just this beautiful genealogy.
Yep.
And if we take the old adage, the old approach of, all that's done away with,
right.
And he's Messiah, he can come and start a whole new religion. The old religion doesn't even matter anymore.
Right.
If we go from that perspective, then why would Matthew put so much ink down? Why would he spend so much time researching and making sure that he gets it exactly right if there was it didn't matter?
Right.
And then you go into what does it mean to be, let's say, a Cohen or a high priest?
Right.
And to be a son of Aaron, you have to record all this down. And it's like they went to great lengths to secure the priesthood and the to be a high priest,
right.
to be proven from Aaron, to be a king, of the son of David.
Right.
And that mentions David and Abraham in Matthew chapter 1. And I was like, there's a reason for that. Right. There's a reason why we're having to read, and it's proof of who he is and who he says he is. You can't, and all the other false messiahs would be burdened to have the same proof upon them, and it's just amazing. And so I learned through the Talmudic and Midrash level, like this lineage and recording it like he is doing,
right,
is like you say, that's the key. That's saying, not only am I doing great miracles and signs and wonders in your face, I actually have the lineage, and the lineage, not only the lineage that I think it should be, it's the lineage that everyone expects it to be, because he wrote it in the Torah.
It's 100% correct. No one can just step up and say, "Hey, I'm the Messiah. I want to be the Messiah today." Actually, there's been hundreds of false messiahs and false prophets in the world, but you have to have a very specific credentialing based on one's genealogy. It has to be the son of Judah, it has to be the son of David, it has to be the son of Solomon.
Yeah.
And even it has to be the son of Hezekiah, believe it or not. So we're going to discover some of this too, because a lot of people look at the genealogies, for instance, and they come up with all kinds of contradictions. Well, Matthew is this way, Luke is this way. We're going to answer those from a Jewish perspective. And there's going to be things that we're going to see that we've never seen before. But to your first point, as we open up the book of Matthew in Hebrew, it's Sefer Toldot Shel Yeshua HaMashiach ben David ben Abraham. This is the record of the genealogy of Yeshua the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Who is David? Who is Abraham? And why does it put it in that order? Why doesn't it say son of Abraham, son of David?
Right.
And so we're going to approach this with the Jewish, the way the Jewish people understand the text. So I'm going to explain this just for a moment. Anytime you approach a verse, a verse in Hebrew is a pasuk, okay, a pasuk. If you look at any particular verse, the rabbis say a certain phrase that everybody's going to learn. And throughout this study, we're going to learn all these particular phrases that are very important for us to memorize and also to apply to our own personal study. And this particular statement is Shivim Panim LaTorah, which means there are 70 faces to the Torah.
Yeah.
So imagine that the Torah, or every Bible verse, is a diamond.
Yeah.
And this diamond has 70 facets. And as I turn the diamond, as the light goes into the diamond, it begins to refract and to reflect throughout, through in different directions in different ways. And you'll see a green
brilliance changes.
Brilliance, yes. And you'll see a green flash of fire. I'll see a red flash of fire. And it's not either or, it's both and. And so sometimes this is another issue, is that in the non-Jewish world, and I can say this, I'm not Jewish, on the non-Jewish world, people look at things in a very linear fashion, in a very Greek fashion.
This.
It means this, only means this. This is only what this means. Where in the Jewish world, you have a multidimensional understanding. Okay, so this is called pardes.
Yeah.
Peshat, remez, drash, and sod. I'm going to pull up a small graphic here. And in this graphic, you will see these 4 levels: peshat, remez, drash, and sod. So what the peshat level means is the simple, literal exegesis.
Right.
What you see is what you get. And that is the basic understanding. And the basic understanding cannot be contradicted by the deeper understanding. It's very important to understand that concept, because a lot of people will go into like some very mystical and very deep things that is contrary to the plain meaning of the text. That's a violation of the principles of hermeneutics, of the principles of interpretations of the Jewish people. So with that said, no deeper level can contradict the peshat, the simple level. So if God says you shall not worship idols, it means you shall not worship idols, okay, right. Period. Is there deeper levels to that? Like an idol can be, I don't know, your nicotine addiction, or it could be, your favorite sports team that has taken place of God in your life. It's like this. That's possible, and it's not wrong to watch sports. I'm just saying that there are times that somebody can take something mundane and turn it into an idol. Yeah, that has a deeper application, but it still means you shall not worship a golden little statue. You can't do that. So on the same level, this is just what you see, what you get, the exegesis of it. Now let's look into the remez level. The remez level is the next level. This is the hint level, or the clue level. This is where verses start connecting to each other through similar wording. So we get this concept called gizra shava, which means like similar judgments. But what it's saying is, if there is a verse over here in Genesis that seems to have exactly the same phrase, the same phraseology over here in Judges, that these 2 verses are linked, even though they're disconnected and in totally separate context. Mm-hmm. So in the Jewish mind, these are actually connected. So one verse is actually commenting on the other verse because of the similar language. This is a principle that you will not find and I don't mean to criticize or anything, but you won't find this in a Christian institution of higher learning, because this is a Jewish principle. It comes down from Hillel. And so it's both Hillel and then also Rabbi Ishmael. So I want to tell you that there are principles of interpretation. If you and I are playing basketball and I pick up the ball and I just start running with it without dribbling and then shoot, you'll say, hey, you're traveling. So not according to me. Well, if there are no rules or guidelines for interpretation, then everybody can come up with their own interpretation, which is why we have tens of thousands of divisions in the body, okay? Right. There are principles of interpretation, and they follow these 4 levels. So the level of Peshat follows the 7 laws of Hillel. The level of Remez follows the 13 laws of Rabbi Ishmael. The level of Drash follows the 32 laws of Ben Galil, of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. And then there are supposedly, I've only seen the list once, of the 42 laws of the Zohar. The Drash level, which I'm going to talk about now, refers to a deeper understanding. Christians would call this eisegesis, where you see a principle embedded behind the surface of the text, but it's not explicit in the exegetical level. Like there is a deeper principle that's going on here, and you will also understand the Jewish backstory of what the Bible will hint at something, but the Jewish people will provide like the full backstory of what's going on in this text. Right. And oftentimes this backstory is not literal, but provides a deeper principle of understanding. And finally, we get the sod level. The sod level is the secret level, is the level of gematria, calculating the numbers of certain words. Like, right, we know of 666 as the most famous example, what actually equals Neron Kaiser, Caesar Nero. In Hebrew, actually equals 666. And the early believers would actually use gematria. This is called gematria. Every Hebrew letter has a number. This actually works in Greek as well. Every Hebrew letter has a number, and certain words start making connections that are not visible in English. For instance, the name Yeshua. Yeshua has the gematria of 386. That equals David ben Yishai, David the son of Jesse. Now, from a Jewish perspective, that's very significant. From a non-Jewish perspective, they'll just say, shrug the shoulders, no big deal. From a Jewish perspective, that's a jaw dropper. Because David ben Yishai, King David, David the son of Jesse, is a prototype of the Messiah. And so when we see hints and secrets of certain phrases in the text, it will start unlocking Yeshua on levels we have never seen before that are just now being revealed today. So if we take, for instance, the bones of Joseph, the phrase Atzmot Yosef, okay? According to the rabbis, based on this principle of Gizra Shava, meaning that there are two verses that are connecting to each other via similar language, the rabbis derived that the sea at the Red Sea split in the merit of the bones of Joseph. The bones of Joseph in Hebrew equals 762, which equals Mashiach Yeshua Chai. Yeshua, the Messiah, is alive. So on a deeper level, there is a connection between the bones, the essence of Joseph, and the resurrected Messiah, who is the Messiah, the son of Joseph, who's going to reveal himself as Messiah, son of David. We're going to explore these connections through this level of the New Testament because, for instance, let's just bring up an example. You read in the book of John that they bring up 153 fish up on the shore.
Why?
Yeah.
Why that number?
Why that number?
Skip, I don't understand.
Commentators, if you look at any commentary, they'll say, we don't know exactly what this means. If John hid this as a mystery, he did a really good job.
Right.
In the Jewish world, they're going, of course I know what that is.
Does this number have meaning to you?
Yes.
Say yes.
Absolutely. So this number means multiple things on multiple levels, and we're going to explore that through our study that we're going to go through.
You know, it won't be the full concentration of the study just going to this level, of course, but to bring validity to the concept, because it sounds like, you know, I can make up anything. I'll make up some numbers for you.
Sure.
But there are non-believing Orthodox Jewish people who are making these calculations, and they're coming to the name of Yeshua. They're coming to the meanings behind, you know, the land of Israel.
That's right.
I'm talking about teacher Ariel Cohen-Laurel doing stuff. There's others like him, non-believers, but they're going, wait a second.
Yes.
The numbers keep pointing back.
That's right.
To a specific person.
That's right.
And we can't ignore it.
That's right.
Which is amazing.
It's incredible. In Isaiah 53, you know, it says, Yeshua Shmi, Yeshua is my name. There are just different connections that we're going to be looking through, but we're going to explore all four of these levels through our study, but we're looking at these levels in the New Testament. So the four levels, Peshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod, form an acronym called Pardes. Pardes means paradise. It's a term for the Garden of Eden, but it also means these four levels. But these four levels correspond to the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's very evident from the very first word in John that it's on the Sod level, on the secret level.
Right.
Bereshit haya hadavar. In the beginning was the Word.
Right.
That statement is so huge. This would be a very easy one. Bereshit haya hadavar. In the beginning was the Word. What Torah portion is that referring to?
Yeah. Bereshit.
Yes. Parashat Bereshit, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And when we look into Genesis 1, verse 1, we learn something amazing.
Right.
The word Bereshit, you shouldn't spell it, you shouldn't phrase it like that. Even all the rabbis say, why is the Hebrew here violating the Hebrew grammar right out of the
gate? Yeah.
Right out of the gate, it should say Brishonah, and it's saying Bereshit. And listen to this. They say the word Bereshit. let me explain for those who don't read Hebrew. And we're going to explain this as well. As we go through all of this, we're going to make it very clear, B'ezrat Hashem, with God's help. Reshit is a construct form in Hebrew, meaning if I'm just saying the beginning by itself, I would say Rishonah. But if I say the last days, for instance, I will say Acharit Hayamim. If I say last by itself, it's Achrona. So if I say beginning, it's Rishona. But if I'm modifying the word the days, Bereshit Hayamim. So that's called a construct form. The problem is Genesis doesn't tell us what it's modifying. The word Bereshit, the beginning of what? The rabbis looked into this, and in Proverbs chapter 8, verse 22 through 30, determined that Reshit is a name. Reshit is a name, and it's a name of the primordial Torah. Now watch this. It's a name of the primordial Torah, which if you read Proverbs chapter 8, 22 through 30, you'll see that this Torah, all things were made through it. Without it, nothing was made that has been made. It was before the primal dust of the world, of the universe. It was beside God as God created the world through him. And then it says, Hashem kinani reshit darhu, the Lord possessed me at the beginning of his way, of his derech, of his darho. Darhu is his way. So when you see this, you see that Reshit is one of the names of the Torah. So the letter Beit, Reshit, can mean with. So you can interpret this, and the ancient Aramaic Targum actually did it with wisdom. With the Torah, God created the world.
And he is the Word.
And he is the Word. So when it says, all things were made through him, and without him there was nothing made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. And then you see, Yehi Or, let there be light. You will see that the let there be light from the very beginning is the emanation of Yeshua himself, the primordial Torah, the instrument of all creation. And so just by looking at these connections, we can unlock all of this. But it's amazing because the Zohar, which is written on the Sod level, which we're going to talk about right now, it says, this is a commentary on the Torah from the Sod level. And it says, the Torah proclaims, I was beside him as an architect. Through me, he created the world. Okay, so let's talk about this just for a moment.
Yeah, well, I want to ask something too.
Sure.
I know, and as we dive into it, I feel like we need to put something to rest, right out the gate.
Do it.
I mean, most people are, you say Zohar, you say
Talmud,
you say Kabbalah.
Right.
You begin to what in people's minds associate with paganism, witchcraft, some really dark things. And so, and there are some things out there on the internet that can maybe validate those words. We don't need to go way down the road, but
let's talk about
let's talk about Zohar level, Sod level writings, and one of the most highest Sod level writings books out there is probably the New Testament itself.
That's where, in the end, we're going to go. So let's start with the Talmud, and then we'll build up to the Zohar. Okay? Because a lot of people make accusations against the Talmud as well. This right here that I'm holding in my hands is the Babylonian Talmud. This is
volume.
This is one volume called a tractate, Masechet. This is one volume. There are like 72 of these.
Yeah.
So if you ever hear an anti-Semite say, well, I've read the Talmud. Oh, you have no way. I've studied the Talmud for decades and probably haven't scratched 7% of it. It's like, if you read a page a day, it would take you 7 years. Okay. So anybody who says, I've read the Talmud has no idea what they're talking about. I want to tell you something. The Talmud means study. Talmud means study. And this is a commentary on what's called the Mishnah. The Mishnah is basically like a manual that says, here's how you do this procedure of this particular commandment. This is how you do the procedure in the temple. And so it tells you exactly how to do things and it preserves the ancient tradition. And there was a section called the Gemara that's a commentary on the Mishnah. And we're going to go over this in our class. But a lot of people have heard different things saying, oh, the Talmud says bad things about Yeshua and different things. We're going to reveal all of that. It's so amazing. I just want to tell everybody, just have to trust me on this, because this could be a whole nother show, is everything flips over in Yeshua's favor, always. All of Judaism is pro-Yeshua, okay? In the Talmud, it says, the Sabbath is given to you, not you to the Sabbath, okay? People have studied this for generations and have said, hey, wait a minute, Jesus says that exact phrase. And not only that, now we know exactly the words he used to say that phrase because we have this. So it's so amazing because the Talmud allows us to put a finger on the pulse of the ancient rabbis, how they interpret the text. And it's so critical for our understanding of the New Testament, as we're going to see in the study.
Right.
But this is made up, the Talmud is made up of the Mishnah, which would be the Peshat, literal, here's how you do it level, and the Gemara, which is the Remez, okay?
Okay.
The next level is called the Midrash. Now, the Midrash, this is also like one of, there's hundreds and hundreds of Midrashim. Midrashim is plural, but this is one volume of 17 of what is called the Midrash Rabbah. So the Midrash, I would say this would be the book of Matthew as we go through this, because the book of Matthew presents Yeshua as the second Moses and the embodiment of all of Israel, which will make sense as we go through the study. And this is on this very deep level. But then we have the Zohar, which is the Gospel of John, okay?
Right.
This is the Gospel of John level, all right? So a lot of people have problems because you hear this phrase Kabbalah, and everyone's like, oh no, that's witchcraft, it's all kinds of terrible things. Nothing could be further from the truth. I want to tell you that if you type in that, there are tons of all kinds of craziness. If you type in Christianity, you're going to pull up every cult in the world, okay, including that says they're a part of Christianity. If you type in Messianic Judaism, you'll get the craziest, wildest people of all time. So you have to have a guide that will help you understand what you're reading, all right? I can show you this. This is so amazing. This is like the premier version of the Zohar.
Right.
And in the commentary, they'll say, hey, go look at Revelation chapter 1.
Right.
The person that translated this is a Jewish scholar, probably I would consider one of my heroes, named Daniel Hanan Matt. His dad is a rabbi, his brother's a rabbi. This guy's a scholar, like the top Jewish scholar, one of the top in the world. And he's like, hey, go look at this parallel in the book of Revelation. Go look at this in Luke chapter 2. And he puts that in this because this is parallel. I've studied this for decades, all right? So anybody that's like afraid to, I understand you don't have to go jump into this. There's also something for this study. You don't need to buy all these books. They're all online for free on Safaria, but we're also going to make our notes available. But just to put that concern to rest, the deeper Jewish level of understanding is in the New Testament. And this is where I think we're going to really unlock things as we go through. This is a Christian commentary called the IVP Bible Background Commentary. You can find this at a local Mardel. You can get this online. This guy, Craig Keener, is a genius Christian scholar. And I also want to show you here the commentary, the rabbinic commentary on the New Testament from Samuel Tobias Locke. This was published by a Jewish publishing house, Katav Publishing.
Right.
So with all these commentaries that we're going to be bringing in, the Zohar is one of them, because I have found parallel passages with the New Testament, not only linguistically, but structurally parallel. And if you want to understand the Gospel of John on the level it's written, you cannot do so without the Zohar. Most scholars are afraid to touch it, but we're not going to be afraid to do that because it is totally fine when you have proper guidance and understanding. The problem is, here's the problem. You know how people can twist the Bible? The Bible itself, they can twist it. If you can twist the Bible, you can turn the Zohar into a pretzel.
Right.
So there are proper ways to understand the text.
Right.
There are guidelines and principles, and it's written in a code language. And we're going to explain this code language as we go, that according to Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal, he says we had to write down everything in parables.
Right.
Because we couldn't give the keys of the kingdom out just to anyone.
Uh-huh.
And so at the same time, we couldn't lose it. It was forbidden for us to reveal this knowledge to the world.
Sounds like Yeshua. He says, I speak to you in parables.
It's exactly parallel.
I just have to say something that just jumps out.
Sure.
And I hope for you watching right now, this jumps out to you. So all these books that you've just sort of pointed out, especially like the Zohar, this works. Here's the works we're talking about, and we're putting New Testament references in.
Yep.
Why would a Jewish text put New Testament references in its books? Why would people in the 19th century be writing in German, writing about the Torah, but then bringing in the Bible or the teachings of the disciples? It seems like a blaring question. I mean, I don't see Christian works bringing in Jewish writings, but we're seeing Jewish writings bringing in what we would say Christian references. So in order to, I'll say it and I'll let you elaborate, but it's just like, the reason is the New Testament is a Second Temple era Jewish book.
It's a Jewish book. The New Testament is a Jewish book, and this is the biggest secret in the world.
Yeah.
The New Testament is Jewish, okay? There was only one non-Jewish writer of the New Testament, was Luke. In the Tanakh, in the Older Testament, there was also a non-Jewish writer who was Obadiah. This is very interesting. I asked this question to Daniel, Khan, and Matt. I said, how do we explain not only the linguistic, but structural parallels between the Gospels and the book of Revelation with the Zohar, and also the book of Galatians with the Zohar? And he just to simply put, his response was to me, Jesus is Jewish. And this simple understanding will unlock everything.
Yeah.
The New Testament is a Jewish book. Jesus is Jewish. And when we understand his language, his culture, the soil from which the New Testament grew, we'll understand several things. First of all, and I think somebody may have told you, hey, you guys are underestimating the Greek and other things like this. And well, look, we're not underestimating the Greek. But we know the Greek is not the source. All right. The New Testament was preserved in Greek, but it's also, there's tons of other, there's Coptic texts, there's tons of other texts as well. But there is definitely an underlying Aramaic and Hebrew source to these concepts. A quick example, we talked about the Logos being the Torah. If you go and you treat the Logos as if it's a Greek concept, and you go in back and you trace it through Heraclitus and go through all of his commentaries, you're wasting your time, because this is not Greek philosophy. This is a Jewish midrashic understanding that you have to unlock through the Jewish world.
Right.
So I have no problem with the Greek, but you have to go a step further into the Hebrew, into the Aramaic.
Right. I love this thought too, because we know Paul was a Roman citizen. He didn't grow up in Jerusalem, but being probably from an influential or a wealthy family, and I'm making the assumption because he did go to study under Gamaliel. So when he was in Rome or wherever he was at, he probably had access to all the philosophers of his day.
And he actually quotes a Greek philosopher once or twice in the book of Acts, and one time in the letters. But that's not the source of his concepts.
But
when he's writing, he's not sourcing that from Greek. He's sourcing it from Jewish sources.
Right. So as he begins to go, hey, what am I going to do with my life? He chose to go to Jerusalem and study under a very famous rabbi.
Very famous, Rabban Gamaliel.
Gamaliel, and who is mentioned in these books.
That's right.
His teachings, and his other students mention stuff in the writing.
Not only is Gamaliel mentioned, many people are mentioned, including Nicodemus. Nakdimon Ben Gurion is mentioned in the Talmud in multiple places. And now, as we come getting close to the end, I want to bring something up.
Yeah. Something
amazing. This is the Bible we're using. It's parallel Hebrew and English. We have been given something that is it's the greatest treasure. We've been given the New Testament. when we openly look at the pages of the New Testament, I want to tell you something I've learned after studying in the Jewish world or Jewish texts for decades, is that the greatest secrets of the Jewish people are openly displayed on the pages of the New Testament. There are 5 or 6 or 7 different texts that say before the Messiah comes, there will be a star that shines in the east, and the Gentile astrologers will understand what the meaning of the star is before the Jews do. And this happens in Matthew chapter 2. We're going to see things that the Jewish people have expected and wrote about and studied and are like concealed in the deepest secrets that are openly displayed on the pages of the New Testament. And when we, as a 21st century American, read this ancient 2,000-year-old Jewish text, we don't know what we're reading. We don't know the beauty, the connection to the source, the unveiling of the Torah, this deep resonance that Yeshua has that he's revealing. And I'm telling you, it will open your eyes to the greater level, greater picture of the New Testament that you have never, ever seen before. And it'll come to such an extent that you'll get to know your Savior, Jesus, Yeshua, on such an amazing level. You will understand his words, which is incumbent upon us as disciples to memorize his words, to replicate his teaching, and to live out his words in our lives. So we don't want this to be simply informational. We want it to be transformational. And what we have been given in the New Testament is the greatest secrets. It's the complete summary of all the Jewish literature for the last 2,000 years in a zip file in 27 books in 260 chapters, revealing the Jewish Messiah and the Savior of the world. And we're very excited to break into this very soon. And this is coming February 25th, Tuesday, 7 p.m. This is when we plan to start. It's all live, so people can make comments. And we're very excited about it. Also a little nervous. Want to lower the expectation. But at the same time, we're very excited.
Amen. Amen. If you are out there and you want to get involved, again, let's get on to Ladder of Jacob. You can get on to GLC TV, and we can look at the schedule. We will be broadcasting this as well and replaying it. So make sure that you like, subscribe to the channels so that you see it when it comes out. Yeshua is so good. He is driving our hearts to be closer to his heart as we learn about what he loves. Clearly, he loves the Torah. Clearly, he loves the Jewish people. When you begin to be transformed by his word, we naturally will become echad, one, and united with the Jewish people, with Israel, and when that happens, I think that's when Mashiach will, really longs to come home, when he sees us coming together. That's the litmus test. Are we driving the two sticks, the stick of Ephraim and the stick of Judah together? Are we drawing the two flocks? I think in Luke he talks about two flocks. Are they becoming one? Right. And so join us. I know that your heart's going to be drawn to this, and I'm excited. Ben's excited. I hope you're excited. Thank you for joining us, and we'll just close with a quick word of prayer.
Yes, absolutely. Father in heaven, I just pray for every single person watching. May you bless them with health, happiness, peace, joy, and shalom. And if they come along with us on this journey, Lord, I just ask you to bless them and just bless GLC and just bless all the audience with everything that they need. And we just pray this in the name of Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. We'll see you next time. Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.